the traditional teaching of the church, still the teaching of Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodoxy, is that there are different types of sin. There is venial sin, and there is mortal sin. And what's the difference? The difference is that a mortal sin is committed with full knowledge and with your consent. So the reason...
Do women not know they're getting rid of the dads in the home?
I think women are fed a bunch of lies by our modern liberal feminist culture. And it doesn't obviate the fact that what they're doing is often sinful, but it does create an important distinction. And the reason I really don't mean to be pedantic on this point, but this is like the fundamental distinction between a liberal individualist worldview and a more conservative, traditional, classical worldview, is what free will is. And the liberals, on the left and the right, believe that freedom is the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want to do it, and the conservatives believe that freedom is doing what you ought to do.
So what sin are women not responsible for?
What do you mean?
Like what? I'm confused at your point. Like what sin are women not responsible
I'm saying
for?
I'm saying that.
So are you saying they're venial sins?
I'm saying that there is a distinction between venial and mortal sin, and I'm suggesting that knowledge and consent to sin are integral parts.
I'm just trying to apply what you're saying to the analogy. So if women are choosing to get STDs, abortions, be single mothers, alienate children from their dads,
that when I'll tell you exactly
where in this process are they?
When women
sort of responsible.
When women have been raised their whole lives, probably maybe by divorced parents, raised their whole lives to be told to pursue a career rather than family, to go on the birth control pill at age 12, to go to college and study some stupid nonsense and get a $200,000 student loan as a result of that. That there's no such thing as right and wrong. There's no such thing as virtue. You just got to go get your bag, and maybe you're going to end up on OnlyFans because you can make more money doing that than you can waitressing. When they're told that for their entire lives, it's not that they don't bear any moral responsibility, but it is greatly reduced compared to someone who has proper knowledge and the exercise of their will.
Oh, see, I've been on the other side of this.
What's the other side?
No, the other side is, it doesn't matter. No, because again, it's like you tell women these things, younger women, but women are going to do what they want to do.
I guess I'm just confused because previously you said that it's all different now because of the social conditions have changed. But now you're saying it doesn't.
No, I'm saying there's more freedom. I'm saying there's more freedom for women to do what they want to do. And I think that when you have the most freedom, I think when you have the most choice, you see what people truly want to do. Not what they say they want to do, but what they choose to do.
And how do people come to their desires? Is the point.
I know we're going to go back to Google, huh?
No.
I'm trying to understand.
Part of it is through habit. So if you get a guy who is a Hunter Biden, you get a guy who's like a drug addict, derelict, right? And you put him in a room with a bunch of hookers and blow and a cello. And you say you can do whatever you want. You can go play Bach on the cello, or you can go hang out with the hookers and the blow. Hunter Biden, or a guy like him, probably not going to pick the cello. But if you go to a guy who's relatively upright and who has cultivated virtue and believes that actually, if he commits a lot of sins, he's going to just burn in hell for eternity, and he loves God and everything, and you put him in the room with the hookers and the blow and the cello, I'm not saying 100 times out of 100 he's going to pick the cello, but a lot of times that guy's going to pick the cello. And so those two guys have the same choice available to them, but their wills are inclined toward different things.
But you're still responsible for your sin.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I don't think coddling women helps us.
I don't think addressing social reality.
I think it's just a bunch of excuses. I think as a woman, I know women in the same environments that picked completely different things. So that's my opinion. You can disagree, but I know women. Right. I know women. I know women that they're in the same family. One chose sex work or something similar. One chose to be a housewife. Same family.
Right. But if you're saying to the point you opened with when you say, look, it's different for the younger than 30 women or whatever. It's total because the social circumstances have changed. I agree with you. But then the thing that has changed is not the women and the nature of the women. The thing that has changed is the social circumstances. And so the place you're placing the blame, even you, as you describe it, is in those changing laws and customs and norms, not on the nature of women.
No, I still think you're responsible, but I don't think the laws are fair to men.
So you would, and you would change the laws. But you don't blame the laws for the problem. But you would change them anyway because they're so bad.
You know, if I can legally kill someone, should I?
It depends the circumstance.
But in general.
What's in general? I mean, if he's like threatening your family, perhaps. If he's just, you don't like the cut of his jib, probably
Yeah,
not.
but you know what I'm asking, okay?
I don't know what you're asking. Pearl, I promise you, I do not know what you're asking.
That's what I'm saying is, like, just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you should.
It depends what the thing is.
Like, what's your, I'm really just confused at what your point is. So are women responsible for their sin or they're not responsible?
I think okay for sin is contingent on knowledge and free consent, which are depend upon, to a large degree, how one is educated. And the question of education is very important here because the begetting and education of children is the primary purpose of marriage, which is a natural institution. And so it seems to me that the idea that you are furthering and advocating, which cuts against the practice of marriage today, unravels all of these things.
It doesn't cut against the practice of marriage. I advocate that the laws should change.
Right. And until the laws change,
men have to decide for themselves.
I think you're skirting the issue.
I think that men are tired of being told what to do by women. So I think every man has to decide. Do you disagree that every man should decide for himself what makes sense in his life?
I do. I think men ought to do what's right.
Okay. And you know what's right.
I hope I do. I hope I've cultivated my faculties of reason and moral conscience to such a degree that they can correspond with God's grace and basically lead me right. Yeah.
I mean, it almost sounds like you're playing God.
No, but I hope that I'm cooperating with God. And I'm a rational creature made in the image and likeness of God. Okay. And that fact is borne out in my reason, which is what we're supposedly here to do. And the fact, Pearl, that you keep backing away from using our reason to come to certain judgments about how men ought to behave and about good and bad and right and wrong seems to me a denial of what is basically the premise of any conversation, which is that we can know something about reality and come to conclusions about it. And I think you do come to those conclusions, but then you evade the responsibility for it by saying, I just tell men to do what they want.
No, I think that facts don't care about your religion. So I think facts don't care about the way you feel about them.
What do you think a fact is? What do you think a fact is?
That women are paid to leave marriages. That's just a fact.
I thought you were facts in general.
And so, you know, I mean, that's just a fact. And the way you feel about it doesn't change the way it is.
Actually, the way that I feel, which I like to think I've arrived at that through reason, so I think it's tethered to something, real, does affect the way that I behave. And the way that I behave does, to some degree, affect the social circumstances in which we all live. So in a way, actually, a friend of mine says facts don't care about your feelings. But politics largely cares about your feelings, and your feelings are cultivated through virtuous and vicious habits. And being selfish and sleeping around and not getting married and not having kids is vicious. And getting married is very virtuous.
I don't say that men should sleep around.
But you say they shouldn't get married, if you were to give advice, which you don't.
I say that men should be extremely cautious when getting married. I say they should vet women heavily. And if there are not enough wives, that might not be the way that they end up going.
So what should they do then?
It's so interesting. It's always back. It always goes back to that, like me telling them what to do. Every guy's got to decide for himself.
In Pearl World, which we were living in Pearl World earlier, then what would men do if they begged you for advice?
I would say go talk to a preacher, your pastor, a preacher.
I thought facts don't care about your religion.
or your father. Or look, I just don't. Again, I'm not in the business of telling men what to do, and that's just not,
But I think you kind of are.
Not really. Not really. I just don't think.
Do you have any?
Because it depends on the guy. How do because you would first ask like what their situation is. Every person has a different situation.
But every man we're talking about is a man, and there are some things that are common to men, like human nature. And marriage, being a natural institution, is something that is common to men throughout all of history.
But it's not the way we do it today.
Some of us.
Marriage today is not marriage anymore. It's not. It's not marriage when.
I think
it's not marriage today is not marriage anymore.
What do you mean by that?
When the average marriage is 7 to 8 years.
Oh.
When
Yeah.
Women leave 70 to 80% of the time. When women can file abuse or can accuse you of abuse on the way out the door, when women can put you on child support, when women can put you on alimony,
there are many attacks
it is not
on marriage.
marriage anymore.
I totally agree.
And
that we're confused about marriage. I totally agree.
And so, again, you know, I have a hard time telling men to sign up for an institution almost blindly.
I don't think blind. I think they should
with the consequences that come with it.
Don't you think?
And I've seen men on the other side of it. Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after divorce.
Yeah, divorce.
They're and it ruins men's lives every day.
But we don't just. That's not something we disagree on.
But sometimes it sounds like you guys downplay it by how.
No, I don't think so. I just think you're denying that you're advising men to do anything, even though you're saying it would be a good strategy.
No, I don't tell men what to do. One man might find that Christian virgin chick in the middle of nowhere that goes to Latin Mass. One man might not find one close to him at all. I know someone that runs a matchmaking service for like Latin Mass.
Great.
No, they're having the same problems. And this is for the Latin community. I know someone that runs one. He tells me the same thing. There's too many men. There's not enough women in this specific one.
Yeah.
And the women are a bit too high of standards, a bit delusional in what they have.
Have you ever been to the female delusion calculator?
Yeah, but my point is, so you're going into the churches, you're finding the same problems outside of the churches. Maybe some of them are a little slower.
Yeah.
Some of them are a little slower to hit, right? Like Latin Mass, I would say, is one of the better ones, but there's still a record number of annulments. We still see more liberal
Again, not among the trads, but in the Catholic Church broadly, the annulments have gone up.
Correct. And so my point is, it's going to be tough to convince men to join these things when even the churches seem to be going left.
Yeah, I agree. But
the churches are teaching egalitarianism. Like
some are.
I went to, and I know a lot of these are anecdotes, but when you start to interview as many people as I have, you start to see patterns. And, I'm hearing from men that the church makes their wives worse, not better, because they're being told in Bible, like they're being told in their Bible studies that they're women-led, and they
heretics
get all these,
and schismatics have created problems for all of history.
Yeah. But I don't think the church is a fail-safe in a society that pays women to lead.
Yeah, no, there's risk in everything. But to your point, Pearl, you've said that look, you're not prescribing anything. You're just observing how things are, and the men don't want to get married. And right, I guess what I'm observing is that. Men still like women, even with all the kind of weird rainbow stuff. Men still like women, and women still like men, and they're still going to get together, and they're still going to desire children, or at the very least, they're going to do the things that lead to children. And so that's going to happen, whether you advise them to do that or advise them not to do that or whatever. And so in that case, don't we need to deal with what that institution ought to look like?